President and colleagues, last week, Americans were horrified to hear the news that Citigroup and other companies receiving taxpayer money from the Troubled Asset Relief Program were paying their employees billions and billions of dollars in bonuses. Today, Senator Olympia Snowe, our colleague from Maine, she and I will offer a bipartisan amendment to this legislation that makes it clear that it's not enough to say these Wall Street bonuses are wrong. They've got to be paid back. Taxpayers must be protected, and that is what the amendment that Senator Snowe and I are offering will do. Our proposal gives the institutions who got Troubled Asset Relief Program money and paid these outlandish bonuses a simple choice. The institutions will pay back the cash portion of any bonus paid in excess of $100,000 within 120 days of the amendment's enactment, or these institutions would face an excise tax of 35% on what is not repaid to the Treasury. The money can be repaid by buying back the preferred stock the federal government owns in these companies, or in any other fashion the institution chooses. Senator Snowe and I have had extensive legal review with respect to the constitutionality of this provision, and we believe it passes constitutional muster. Mr. President, at this point, I would ask unanimous consent to put into the record a letter sent to me yesterday by Edward Kleinbard, the head of the Joint Committee on Taxation.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I will read just briefly now from the letter from Mr. Kleinbard, but I will quote just from the second paragraph. Mr. Kleinbard says in the letter, there is a powerful argument that your proposal is simply not retroactive, and at his judgment, based on what he has been able to look at thus far, it would be constitutional. Mr. Kleinbard states specifically, taxpayers can avoid the tax completely by repurchasing shares they sold to the United States. The excise tax would be imposed not on prior bonuses, but on the taxpayer's affirmative post-enactment decision not to repurchase those shares at the same price that the shares were sold to the United States. Moreover, the timing, repurchase price, and amount of shares that must be repurchased are not punitive and are commensurate with the conduct that Congress can rationally find to be contrary to the purpose and intent of the legislation that authorized the Treasury's investments. Mr. President and colleagues, I think anyone who looks at the letter from the Joint Committee on Taxation will see that the bipartisan amendment that Senator Snowe and I will be offering with respect to excessive cash bonuses is a matter that does pass constitutional muster and clearly is in the taxpayers' interest. I note my colleagues, particularly from Tennessee and Georgia, have made a number of good points that I happen to feel strongly about with respect to the housing issue. And one of the things we've seen with respect to housing and all of the other economic challenges we have is we've got to get people's confidence back in the American economy. And I believe the Snowe-Wyden amendment will help to generate that confidence by saying that at some point we are going to say that if excessive bonuses are being paid in effect with taxpayer money, I mean, these are companies that got billions and billions of dollars. If we're going to have the confidence that we need to promote housing, as the distinguished senator from Tennessee and Georgia both noted, we've got to make sure that taxpayers don't say, this is wrong, this is not right to give these excessive bonuses with taxpayer money. I would note that Senator Snowe and I set the limit at $100,000. So clearly, we want to be sensitive to the young person getting started in financial services, someone perhaps who was a secretary but it is the outlandish bonuses that we are concerned about. I would also note, Mr. President and colleagues, that these TARP institutions have not yet paid their 2008 taxes. So what we've got is a situation, colleagues, where a number of these companies have not yet paid their 2008 taxes. We are giving retroactive tax benefits in this legislation. Certainly that's the case with the net operating loss provisions, the carryback provisions with respect to businesses. So it seems to me, if you're giving those kinds of retroactive tax breaks, you surely ought to take steps to protect taxpayers, as Senator Snowe and I seek to do with our legislation. Mr. President, the bottom line is that Wall Street firms that took bailout money knew that they weren't supposed to pay their executives lavish bonuses, but they went ahead and paid out more than $18 billion in bonuses anyway. The Snowe-Wyden amendment makes sure that these firms can't take the money and give the Congress and the taxpayers the runaround. If they took the bailout money, the Wall Street firms either have to pay the taxpayers back for the excessive bonuses, or they ought to pay a tax on these bonus payments. Either way, they shouldn't be allowed to pay outrageous bonuses to executives and stick taxpayers with the bill. It is fundamentally wrong, colleagues, to reward with billions of taxpayer dollars this kind of conduct. We have all heard about handing out bonuses to executives at firms responsible for the current economic meltdown. But what happened a couple of weeks ago takes this to a completely different level. At a time when the Congress is faced almost on a weekly basis with requests for billions of dollars of additional money, how in the world can we allow these kinds of bonuses with taxpayer money to stand as if the economy was booming? So my colleagues from Wisconsin and Arizona, I know, have been waiting patiently. I hope colleagues will look at the amendment that Senator Snowe and I are offering. I hope they'll look at the legal analysis provided by the Joint Committee on Taxation with respect to how and why this particular proposal passes constitutional muster. And I hope the United States Senate will say that it's not enough to just give speeches about how it's wrong to hand out these bonuses with taxpayer money, but we will back bipartisan legislation to correct it, to protect taxpayers, and to protect taxpayers at a critical time when we must increase confidence in how the major economic decisions are made in our country. Mr. President, I yield the floor.